So as you can see, this video is gonna be a long journey, but I can tell you that it will be at least as wild as it is long. I'll be talking about what I think will be some of the biggest plot twists in the entire series, and covering a lot of material you really wouldn't expect. Mainly a lot of plot threads in Wano that seemingly went nowhere. So even if you think I'm crazy and that this has no chance of happening, maybe you can just take this as a fun what could have been. I can promise you will at least be entertained. This video is one I owed you guys for a long time. Regardless, I did say in my live stream like 5 months ago that I would only release this video when Kara showed up again, and as of the current chapter, which is 1072, she is still nowhere to be seen. So from the looks of it, it sure seems like Kara really went back to Zou to be its ruler rather than going with the Straw Hats, despite how nonsensical it is and how inconclusive her last appearance is. I mean, that's certainly what Oda wants us to believe, right? So you might be confused, you might ask, why am I choosing to release this now of all moments? Well, to be frank, it's mainly because I just want to get done with it. The video has been pretty much complete for months now, and all the catchy videos from my video editor occupy a frankly disgusting amount of space in my poor SSD that already has almost 200 gigs occupied by CFD simulation data. But also because I feel like at least one of the major things, which I'll talk about in this video, might be revealed in the very chapter that Kara appears again, for reasons you come to understand soon. So how could I have any confidence at all in this Kara stuff after all of this? Is it just copium? Maybe. Is it because we're entering the year of the rabbit? Not really, I actually don't care too much about that. Is it because the official One Piece New Year's art features Carrot? No, I don't think Oda even made that. The art style doesn't look anything like his. I'm not sure Oda had any part in this at all. No, my confidence stems actually from the fact that Rob Lucci is a part of this arc. And now you're probably thinking, what the hell does Rob Lucci have to do with Carrot? Well, watch the video and you will understand. So this video is in a way a follow-up to my Twilight Bunny theory video. So is it necessary to have watched that video to watch this one? No, you understand the vast majority of what I'll say here. It's just you have to take some stuff for granted because they were explained back then, and I'm just not gonna explain them again. Anyways, we'll start this journey by venturing into the dark, forgotten realms of One Piece.
Behold the cave of Carbano. Right. Keep me covered. What with? Just keep me covered. Too late. What? There he is. Where? There. What, behind the rabbit? It is the rabbit. You silly sod. What? You got us all worked up! Well, it's no ordinary rabbit. That's the most foul, cruel and bad-tempered rodent you ever set eyes on.
You tit! I saw my arm and I was so scared.
Look, that rabbit's got a vicious streak a mile wide. It's a killer.
Get stuffed.
He'll do you a treat, mate.
Oh, yeah? Manky Scots git.
I'm warning you.
What's he do? Nibble your bum?
He's got huge, sharp... he can leap about... Look at the bones!
Go on, boys, chop his head off.
Right, silly little bleeder. One rabbit stew coming right up. Look! Jesus Christ! I warned you.
I've done it again.
I warned you, but did you listen to me? Oh, no, you knew it all, didn't you? Oh, it's just a harmless little bunny, isn't it? Well, it's always the same. I always tell them, do they listen to me? Right! Oh, no.
When you hear about killer rabbits, you most likely think of this scene from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. But truth be told, this concept is actually surprisingly old. Depictions of violent rabbits murdering humans, dogs, or other such creatures that typically prey on rabbits were a frequent occurrence amongst marginalia. Bizarre and often grotesque drawings that decorated the margins of the pages of medieval manuscripts. The reason why the killer rabbit was such a recurring theme is a topic of debate, but two main theories exist. One is that rabbits typically portrayed fragility and purity, and thus seeing these seemingly defenseless animals turn into vicious murderers would add an extra layer of disturbing. We can compare this, for example, to how Whole Cake Island and Big Mom herself are made especially disturbing by juxtaposing so many pure and childish elements with incredibly dark undertones. Another theory is that they were meant to be comedic. Seeing rabbits, the quintessential prey animal, turn into vicious murderers who hunt back their predators, has a certain humorous value due to its sheer absurd nature and inversion of expectations. We can see something similar to this in One Piece when the first mermaid that we encountered turns out to be a not exactly very attractive old woman, or how somehow Buggy ends up being considered one of the most powerful people in the world. But what is the connection between all of this and Carrot, and why should we even expect Carrot to have an extended backstory more than what we've already got? It doesn't add up. What doesn't? Carrot's backstory, or at least what we know of it for now. The only backstory we're given for Carrot has her in her early teens. This is highly suspicious. If you have a character who's 15 and you're showing their backstory, not showing their childhood and instead only showing their early teens, so at youngest 13, literally a couple of years back, seems like you're avoiding their childhood for a reason. We were shown Inu, Neko, Pedro and Wanda as children, but not Carrot. In her flashback, it looks like she's just starting her training under the Musketeers. She's shown to have no aptitude for the sword. I mean, it's gotta be for the first time, right? Or is Pedro just watching her helplessly train with the sword for years before finally realizing that she has no aptitude for it? But isn't it even more weird that she would be training for the first time as a teenager? Carrot, despite being only 15 years old, was able to dodge a slash from Zoro and is acknowledged as strong by Luffy. In Whole Cake Island, she and Peckham's are put in mirroring situations. So long Carrot versus Daifuku and his fleet, so long Peckham's versus Oven and his army, with Daifuku and Oven being continuously portrayed as equals. The result? Peckham's gets immediately clapped and lynched by the army. Meanwhile, enemies don't even manage to touch Carrot. She leads Daifuku by the nose. Peckham's was a member of Big Mom's pirates, worth 330 million berries, and knows haki. Are we to believe that someone who's this strong at 15 years old only started training in her teens? When we see in One Piece over and over again characters starting their training and fighting as children. When the Beast Pirates invade Zou, we'd see even little children Mink fighting. Oda also passed on the opportunity to draw small Carrot. Really? Explain this one, skeptics. Do you know how much merchandise that will sell? Carrot's parents are suspiciously nowhere to be found. She's 15, yet when she sneaks aboard the Sunny, she's worried Pedro will tell Wanda on her, not her parents. Pedro and Wanda seem to be acting as parental figures for her in their stead. This is never addressed, not even just mentioning in passing that she's an orphan or something. We see Peckham's parents, but not Carrot's. So who the hell are her parents even, and where are they? Remember Lindbergh, one of Dragon's commanders in the Revolutionary Army? It's assumed that Lindbergh is a cat mink, but pay attention to how we never see Lindbergh's tail or ears, as they are covered by a large top hat that could be hiding large rabbit ears. Remember Gombe from Other 7? Chimney's cat, who was actually a rabbit? Notice how the color scheme for Lindbergh's fur is suspiciously almost an exact match for Gombe's. The cream fur in the middle, the cyan around, and even the pink nose. And then we have Lindbergh's teeth. No, it wasn't enough for me to include Gombe in this theory. I'm bringing dentistry into this too. Did this look like the fangs of a predator cat mink to you? Or the flat teeth of a herbivore? And now you probably see where I'm going with this. Yes, Lindbergh is Gombe's father. Wait, huh? No, that's not where I was going with this. It's Carrot. Carrot is Gombe's father. Wait, I'm sorry, Lindbergh's daughter. First of all, Lindbergh is 37 years old. He would have been 22 when Carrot was born. A believable age. He and Carrot were both given blood type F. They were also given very similar birthdays. May 21st for Lindbergh, May 24th for Carrot. And in the same way that Lindbergh is a rabbit and acts like a cat, the same can be said to some extent for Carrot for using the claw gloves typically used by cat-like characters. But here's the most important thing. Remember how in the Autonomy video I said Carrot was inspired by Alice in Wonderland? Specifically, how she's a combination of the White Rabbit and of Alice herself. Well, the same thing is true for Lindbergh. She's a combination of the Hatter and the Cheshire Cat, having both the Hatter's madness and the cat's perpetual smile. Having Lindbergh be introduced as a cat and not a rabbit helps to hide this connection, but why hide it? Is there any significance to him being her dad? Because you see, Lindbergh is a cat who's actually a rabbit, but actually he's a rat. And I don't mean that actually he's a rat mink or he's the rat in the Zodiac like Carrot. I mean he's the goddamn rat in the Revolutionaries. It's likely you've seen this theory before as it's old, but Lindbergh is likely named after Charles Lindbergh, an American World War II era pilot. They share many similarities, like being inventors, Lindbergh wearing aviator goggles, Charles Lindbergh being a high-ranking member of the US Air Force, etc. The thing is, Charles Lindbergh was a Nazi sympathizer, to the point of being branded a traitor. Now if you remember from the last video the similarities between Sanji and Carrot, this should not be so shocking to you. Sanji also has a father who was clearly inspired by the Nazis, with all the imagery, eugenics and the name Germa 66. But what would it mean here for Lindbergh to be a traitor, an enemy sympathizer? It means he's probably working for the world government and ratting out information about the Revolutionary Army. Now where does Carrot fit in all of this? In Whole Cake Island, the first arc where we have some real focus on Carrot, we are introduced to Stussy from CP0. Now, have you noticed how similar these two look? Stussy not only shares Carrot's short blonde hair, she also wears a Stussy hat, literally what her name is, exactly like Carrot's in Whole Cake Island, with the rose in the same spot and all. Carrot's outfit in Whole Cake Island is straight up a combination of Stussy's hat and Stussy's CP0 uniform, the sleeveless white top with a v-neck, the frilly skirt and the pink tie. And like I said, Carrot will become immortal by eating the Autonomy. Stussy is said to be much older than what she looks like. Actually, her age is straight up a secret, so God knows how old she is. We have no idea what year Stussy was born in, but Oda kindly gave us the date, April 24th, exactly 1 month before Carrot's birthday. Now why is Oda drawing this parallel between Carrot and a member of Cipher Pol? So as you might know, this theory surrounding Carrot stemmed from a broader theory on who will be the final Straw Hats, the Sunny 13 or Sunny Yugo Jusanko theory, where I claim that there will be 13 Straw Hats in the end, the final ones being Carrot, Yamato and Vivi. Among the theories that claim that there will be 13 Straw Hats in the end, there are the so-called 4 per sea theories, where it's claimed that in every sea Luffy recruits exactly 4 people and that there are certain similarities between the first members to join in each sea, the second members to join, the third, etc. Normally people will say that the first member to join is someone who is presented to us as a monster, the second to join is a girl, third was the leader of his own crew, and the fourth is a pervert. Now, I'm personally not very big on these theories because I don't find those patterns particularly strong. All the Straw Hats can be seen as monsters in some ways. You know, Nami is a witch, Brook is literally a talking skeleton, Sanji is based on Lucifer, etc. Brook and Jinbei were also former captains of their own crews, and Frankie is also described as a pervert. But for the second members to join the sea, so far there has been actually a very interesting pattern. Both Nami and Robin had a dark past that they hid from the crew. They worked for the enemy in the past, and their stories have themes of betrayal where their loyalty towards the crew is questioned. So as you see in this theory, Carrot's backstory will be the ultimate version of that. The final evolution that we see from the backstories that we have from Nami and Robin. Like Dressrosa mirrors Alabasta and Wano mirrors Thriller Bark, Zou and Whole Cake Island mirror Water 7 and Enies Lobby. The rain eruptions in the water filtration structure are a mirror to the water fountain from Water 7. A crew member goes missing, leaving the crew in an act of self-sacrifice, thinking himself as a burden to the crew, and the Straw Hats have to go retrieve him. But more importantly, the pets. Water 7 and Enies Lobby provide us with a large host of adorable companions. And now, I'm gonna say something that's gonna sound a bit crazy. All of them, with the sole exception of Yokozuna, who was foreshadowing for Frankie's backstory, are foreshadowing for Carrot, each representing a certain aspect of her. I already talked about the goat, Gombe. Wait, goat? Wasn't he a cat? Yes, and fun fact, actually a rabbit. So let's address the others. Funk Free, Spandam sword that ate the elephant zone fruit, literally the Zozonomi. No need to explain this one, I believe. Tyrannosaurus, Iceberg's adorably named rat, colored completely white with red eyes, like Carrot, who represents the rat zodiac. Hattori, the drippiest bird in existence, Rob Lucci's pigeon, also colored like Carrot. Hattori is a messenger bird, a reference to homing pigeons used to send messages in the past, and a hilarious one at that, speaking for Lucci as his ventriloquist puppet. Likewise, Carrot worked as a king's bird, literally a messenger bird between Inuarashi and Nekomamushi. Sodom and Gomorrah, the king bulls of the Frankie family. Remember, Carrot's base form represents the sun, while her Xulong form represents the moon. This is the same thing we see with Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom is the sun and Gomorrah is the moon. We even see Gomorrah, the moon, being cast into the darkness like the moon in the night by going blind in Enies' lobby. Chopper? See, the Straw Hats also have a pet in this arc, because this is when Chopper gets his first bounty, being mistaken as the Straw Hat's pet. And just like Carrot, Chopper is a transforming humanoid furry animal, and is 15 when he joins the crew, like Carrot is now. Okay, but why? So remember that panel with a guy holding a doll that looks exactly like Carrot in Luffy's post-war flashback? See how prominently Oda put the number 36 in this panel. Volume 36 is the 9th Justice, CP9. The reason why there's so much foreshadowing pointing towards Carrot during the Water 7 saga, the reason why Oda made a blatant parallel between Carrot and Stussy is that Carrot was previously a member of CP9. We were told future CP9 members are trained since childhood in the island of Guanhao, where they learn Rokushiki, the 6 techniques. The vast majority of them are orphans, but there are exceptions. Khalifa is put there to become an assassin by her father, also a former CP9 agent. Kumadori,
あの世に行ったらおいらの死んだおっかさんに伝えてやっておくんなせ。
and Spandam, whose father was the previous chief of CP9. When we meet Carrot for the first time, she immediately goes on to do something that resembles Genpo, moonwalk. When she goes Sulong, we see her doing something akin to Soru, or shave. Now pay attention to how all Rokushiki techniques are perfect upgrades for Carrot's fighting style, almost like they were created specifically for her, and that's because probably they were. Shigun, the finger pistol, made stronger by Lucci by combining it with his cat claws. Perfect for Carrot, who also fights with her claws. Dekai, Iron Body, a great tool for a character that otherwise looks like she wouldn't be particularly durable, for when just agility and speed won't do. Renkyaku, the Tempest Kick, a great range attack for Carrot who otherwise has none, and that could be extremely powerful with her given her main physical attribute is her inhumanly strong legs. Kamiye, allowing superhuman flexibility, which paired with Carrot's agility and speed would make her near impossible to hit, and Rokugan, Lucci's signature move. Carrot right now lacks a move capable of piercing through strong defenses, as her style focuses only on speed at the sacrifice of raw power. Rokugan would be perfect for when the claws are just not enough to damage the opponent. And then there is Seimei Kikan, not technically considered Rokushiki, but both Lucci and Kumadori make use of it. This is a skill that would be insanely useful for Carrot. Kumadori's hair control would be crazy powerful with Carrot, given the ridiculous amount of hair she has in Sulong form. Then there's Seimei Kikan's fast digestion, which could be exactly what Carrot needs to regain her stamina after using Sulong, given its biggest limitation outside of needing the moonlight is the high stamina drain. She's also been shown to be a glutton in Hokigalan, so I could see her gorging on food and then quickly digesting it to regain her strength. Now I explained in the Twilight Bunny theory video why I believe from a thematic and narrative point of view that Carrot is gonna become able to use Sulong at any time without the full moon. Now in that video I claimed that she would do this by using the Toatonomi, but back then I personally thought her getting this fruit would be happening a lot sooner. Right now I'm leaning towards this being an event in the final war, but that's a topic for another time. Regardless, Sulong is described as the true form of the minx. Jinbei says that it's born out of the old instincts hidden within the ancient memories of the minx being activated by the moonlight. This means Sulong is a power that's already within them, that is simply brought out by the view of the full moon. Therefore, there are countless imaginable ways to get around this restriction. For example, Seimei Kikan is said to give you control over all of your bodily functions. If Sulong is already intrinsically a part of the Minx, just another bodily function that simply comes out with the full moon, could it be possible to use it to forcefully bring out Sulong? But that's just speculation. Now in the Autonomy video, I compared Carrot to the Sennin, the immortals from Taoist mythology. Kumadori describes Seimei Kikan as the techniques of a Sennin. In fact, Kumadori has a lion theme and was made to look weirdly similar to Carrot's Sulong form. Remember, Carrot goes Sulong for the first time in the chapter named Lion, in the volume named Lion. Just like Carrot is partially based on Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, Rokushiki, the 6 techniques, could possibly have been based on the 6 realms of transmigration from Buddhism. Now, all the CP9 members seem to have an animal theme. CP9 used almost exclusively Zoan Devil Fruits, turning themselves into human-animal hybrids. Zoro even calls the place a zoo and says there's always the zoo for Kaku when he's out of CP9. Carrot, the rabbit, would fit right into this group of animals. Another inspiration or the likely used to design Carrot that I mentioned in the Autonomy video was the Maho Shoujo or Magical Girl genre, specifically Sailor Moon. The most prominent character in Sailor Moon besides Usagi, Sailor Moon herself, was Chiba Mamoru, Usagi's boyfriend, who was also a hero under the secret identity of Tuxedo Mask, who's probably the most extra character in all of fiction.
Ho ho ho! Merry Christmas! And a Happy New Year!
It is Tuxedo Mask!
The winter is harsh in a snow-driven northern land. However, the only ones who should be allowed to accentuate this winter landscape are lovers.
Now let's see if you can find someone in One Piece that might have been inspired by Tuxedo Mask. Perhaps someone with a secret identity. A handsome black-haired man wearing a black tuxedo, a black top hat, and a white mask that only covers the top half of his face. Am I being too specific?
今取り込み中なんだよ。キラ！死にたくなければ3秒で答えろ。
Oh. Okay, fine, but surely he's not at all associated with roses like Tuxedo Mask is. Oh. Yes, the one inspired by Tuxedo Mask is none other than Rob Lucci. Now, does this mean that Rob Lucci was Carrot's boyfriend?
FBI, open up!
Wait, but the One Piece equivalent to FBI is Cipher Pol. Rob Lucci is Cipher Pol. So who's gonna stop him? No, the relationship between Sailor Moon and Tuxedo Mask is quite different here. So, have you noticed how similar Rob Lucci is to Carrot's mentor Pedro? Pedro the Jaguar, Rob Lucci the Leopard. We were shown both of them as children and the impact Roger had on them. At 6 years old, Pedro asked to be taken by Roger to the sea. 2 years after, at 8 years old, we see Pedro cry over Roger's death and decide he will follow on his footsteps and go to the sea himself. In Chapter 0, we see a 6-year-old Rob Lucci training at Guanhao and also reacting to Roger's execution. But for him, it motivates him to do the opposite, to become a stronger asset for the world government. Pedro and Lucci are similar but also opposites, two sides of the same coin. This duality is the same we see in Carrot herself, even down to the character design. Pedro's hair, similar to that of Carrot's base form, is medium length and color like the sun. Lucci's hair is long and black as the night, as that of Carrot in Sulong is long and white like the moon. Pedro seeks to bring the dawn, Lucci serves the world's darkness. Pedro and Lucci are two sides of the same coin, because just like Pedro was Carrot's last mentor, Rob Lucci was her first. In the twisted world of One Piece, rather than Sailor Moon's boyfriend, Tuxedo Mask is her mentor in assassination. Now remember, in Carrot's flashback, she's in her early teens. I'm gonna say 13 years old. Why? Well, because she looks older than 12 and just 1 year sounds like a bit too little to master the claws plus Electro and controlling Sulong. Also, if she trains 2 years under Pedro, it mirrors the 2 years that the Straw Hats trained for during the time skip. The infiltration of Galela started 5 years before the Water 7 saga, so Lucci would have ended his mentoring of Carrot when she was 8 years old. Does it sound ridiculous to you that Carrot would have mastered Rokushiki by 8 years of age? Well, remember whose backstory we had during Enies lobby? Robin, who became an archaeologist at 8 years of age, and whose backstory should mirror Carrot's. And what was Robin's specialization before she joined the crew again?
暗殺。
Going by the fact that we see Lucci at his youngest training as a 6-year-old, if Carrot started training under Lucci at 6, then he trains her for 2 years, the exact same time I said she trained under Pedro. 2 years trained under the darkness, 2 years trained under the light, in line with Carrot's theme of being between day and night as the twilight. Lucci, like Carrot, was also described as a prodigy. Lucci became a CP9 agent at 13. Similarly, we see Carrot being trained seemingly for the first time by Sicilian when Pedro takes her under his wing at 13. At 13, Lucci dives completely into the darkness. At 13, Carrot switches over to the light. So did Carrot kill people for the world government? Well, probably, but not consciously. Despite her having been CP9, I don't believe Carrot was properly evil at any point, much less now. She's not Kanjuro, and we get to see her internal monologue, so we know she's honest. Her bubbly and innocent personality is what she is really like. But how can she be innocent, having been in an assassination unit? The thing is, Carrot learned how to control her Sulong form from Pedro, so after her past with Cipher Pol. Before that, her Sulong form was an indiscriminate berserker mode. If you are the world government and trying to turn children into murder machines, and one of them happens to do so by just being exposed to the full moon, then you can start making use of them even before the brainwashing is complete. Now in the same arc in which we are shown Sulong for the first time, both under control and out, we also see the backstory of a woman who as a little girl would also go into a berserker mode and turn murderous despite complete lack of ill intent, and even after killing people wouldn't remember a thing. Charlotte Linling, Big Mom. We also get parallels between Carrot and Big Mom relating to her hunger rage in gags. Whole Cake Island starts with Carrot going berserk over food and almost killing Luffy, and ends with Big Mom going berserk over food and almost killing the Straw Hats. Carrot nibbles people and Usopp mistakes this initially as her being a cannibal. Big Mom becomes an actual cannibal when she loses control. Even their names share a similarity in Japanese, Sharuto, Kyaruto. And we shouldn't be so surprised to see parallels between Carrot and Big Mom, because remember, just like Carrot is Alice and the White Rabbit, Big Mom is the Queen of Hearts. Likewise, Liling's parental figure, Caramel, was going to sell her to Cipher Pol. Cipher Pol never got Liling, as Caramel ended up being killed by her at Liling's 6th birthday. Remember the importance of age 6 for Pedro, Lucci, and Carrot? And that I said Lucci became her mentor when she was 6? Liling's 6th birthday is also when she meets Troyson, her shady, murder-loving first mentor, who encourages her to become a killer, and who is also a headed man with long curly black hair, inverted V eyebrows, and grey eyes. My thinking is Carrot never consciously killed anyone. She would be cooperative in missions that didn't involve assassinations, but uncooperative when it came to killing people. But CP9 trained her with Rokushiki and used her on full moon nights as a Sulong killing machine. Like Big Mom after her rampages, she wouldn't remember what she had done after returning to base form. At some point, Carrot came to realize the things she did unconsciously under CP9, either when she gained control over Sulong or likely at some point the moon got unexpectedly covered and she returned to normal to find herself having murdered people. Thus, Carrot is traumatized by her past, and this is why we never see her use any non-mobility Rokushiki techniques, because they were taught to her as tools for assassinations, and they are a part of her she rejects. Now again, remember the similarities between Carrot and Sanji? Well, notice the similarities between this theory and Sanji's backstory. Like Sanji, Carrot deeply rejects this dark past that was forced upon her and wants nothing to do with it. Like Sanji, she's afraid of becoming the tool for murder the ones who forced these powers onto her wanted her to be. And like Sanji, her true strength will be found by overcoming this trauma and accepting her past, using these tools for good instead of for evil. Okay, but if Carrot is being sincere, how does she know so little about the world outside of Zou? Why does she act like she never lived anywhere else? Well, because she doesn't remember most of it. And now you're probably like, oh great, another amnesia plot. But hear me out, this one is different. I'm not talking about convenient memory lost after hitting your head. I'm talking about deliberate memory erasing shenanigans. So how did it happen and how did Carrot end up in Zou? Well, to explain this, first we gotta talk about Kaido's 4th Calamity. Back in 2019, the One Piece magazine featured an expanded version of a panel of the castle fire scene in chapter 920. In it, you can see a 4th character alongside Jack, King, and Queen. But why would there be a 4th Calamity? The Calamities are also named after playing cards, King, Queen and Jack. But what kind of playing cards? I'm gonna say the ones we see being featured prominently during Wano, Tarot playing cards. In Tarot, we have the numbers from 1 to 10, and those are the numbers plus 4 face cards. The Jack, the Queen, the King, and the Knight. Just like I claim again that Luffy as the second coming of Joy Boy represents the second coming of Christ, that Zunisha represents the Wandering Jew, and Kaido as the fake Joy Boy represents the Antichrist, the fake Christ that's supposed to appear right before Christ's second coming, his 4 calamities are based on the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. The White Horse Rider, the Pestilence or Plague. This horseman is described as using a bow and arrow. Queen the Plague uses ranged weapons with bullets laced with diseases of his own creation. The Red Horse Rider, the War. This horseman is described as riding a red horse, often described as fiery red, and carrying a great sword. King the Wildfire uses a great sword, conjures flames, and is associated with the color red, because of the association of the red line with the Lunarians, and is described as a sadist and torture-loving. Oda seems to be going with a theme of natural disaster, and with war being human-made, he's named instead after Wildfire. The Black Horse Rider, the Famine. This horseman carries a pair of balances or weighting scales, indicating the way bread was weighted during a famine. I guess weighting scales don't really work for a weapon, so Jack instead wields a pair of sickles, still tying him to the idea of harvest and bread. Following the theme of natural disasters, he is named after the biggest causes of famines historically, droughts. Jack rules over the region of Kuri, plagued by famines. But we are missing the most important, most prominent horseman, the Pale Horse Rider, Death. Described as being followed by Hades, this horseman is typically depicted as the Grim Reaper. The 4th calamity is Night the Death. After Jack was taken out by the Marines when trying to rescue the Flamingo, we see him coming back together with ships with scorpion figureheads. The Calamities have their Zoan animal as the figurehead for their ships, so could it be that these scorpion ships belong to someone else in the past? Now take a look at the 4th calamity in the panel that I outlined here. What I want to talk about is not actually the green outline of the person, but the red outline I put on the stuff behind them. Jack, King and Queen don't have anything similar behind them, just fire and what looks like raised spears, so what is that? My guess is that that is a twisting, segmented tail of a scorpion. If you think about it, a scorpion would be a really fitting devil fruit for Night the Death. Their tough exoskeleton looks like plated armor, beating for the night. And since the 4th horseman Death is depicted as the Grim Reaper, with a little creativity, Knight's hybrid form with the plated exoskeleton could be made to look as if wearing a skeletal armor, like this abomination for example that someone out there chose to have as furniture. And the curved scorpion tail could be made to look like the Reaper's sight, like for example this even worse abomination that someone out there chose to put on their skin. A scorpion zoan would be a model of the Kuma no Mi, the spider fruit. And isn't this fitting? Because in Japan, perhaps the biggest symbol of death is the spider lily. Like Kaido is a twisted Joy Boy, all of Kaido's commanders are twisted versions of Luffy's own commanders, the ones who will be the distinct 4 strongest under Emperor Luffy. King is a twisted Zoro, the broodiness, his unwavering loyalty towards Kaido, yet unlike Zoro who follows Luffy because he sees the importance of Luffy becoming the Pirate King, King no longer expects Kaido to be Joy Boy and seems to follow him out of a personal sense of obligation. Like King is the horseman of war, Zoro is partially based on Ares, the Greek god of war. Queen is a modified human and a pervert like Sanji, but unlike Sanji, he has no chivalry, no kindness. He willingly exchanges his humanity for power, and his love for food is just being a glutton instead of a chef. Jack, like Yamato, is 28 years old and was taken in by Kaido as a child, essentially an adopted son. While Yamato is Kaido's biological child, Yamato idolizes his rival and is completely disobedient. Jack is Kaido's adoptive child, but idolizes him to the point of dressing like him and is completely obedient. Jack is the son that Kaido would actually really want to have, and we even see Kaido acting fatherly towards Jack. Like Jack is based on the Horseman of Famine and rules over a land that's been turned infertile, Yamato is partially based on Demeter, the Greek goddess of the harvest and the fertility of the land. Now to the glaringly obvious, yes, this person looks like Carrot. Well spotted, Mr. Twitter user. Strange how that didn't go anywhere. Yes, I'm sorry Jinbei, you've been outdone by Rabbit Crow. But look, it's really hard to beat Sulong plus Rokushiki plus time stopping abilities. You see now why there are so many parallels between Zoro and Yamato and Sanji and Carrot? All ones like Yamato and Carrot are like the female versions of Zoro and Sanji? Yeah, because that kinda is what's going on here. Knight, like Carrot, is an agile rabbit mink and a user of claw gloves. While Carrot is marked by her kindness and gains the power of immortality, eternal life, Knight is likely evil as hell and embodies death, mortality. And like I talked in the past about how Carrot is partially based on Hermes, one of Hermes' roles was as a psychopomp in Greek mythology. He was the one who guided the souls of the dead to the underworld, a role similarly played by the Grim Reaper. Carrot plays this role both by having been a killer in the past and also by becoming immortal and thus outliving all of the other crew members in the end. Clearly, there seems to be a bit more of a connection here than between the other commanders, right? How come Knight is also a rabbit mink? So, the Calamities are named with English names but pronounced and spelled with Japanese phonetics. King is Kingu, Queen is Queen, Jack is Jaku. Night would be Naito, which is incidentally also the Japanese version of the word night, as in day and night. Now remember, Carrot is the twilight, Toaraito, the first light of day that emerges from the night to herald in the day. Do you get it? Carrot, the twilight, is born from the night. Night is Carrot's mother. This could explain why Pedro knew that Carrot would have an aptitude for the claw gloves, a fairly uncommon weapon. Pedro was a pirate sailing in the New World. It's possible he knew Night in the past and put two and two together upon meeting Carrot and thus figured she would also have an aptitude for claw gloves. But then you ask, if Carrot was in CP9, shouldn't someone from CP0 recognize her? And shouldn't the Calamities or Kaido recognize her resemblance to Night? Except they would have conveniently had her spend most of the raid outside of the Skull, where she wouldn't be seen by any of them. But what about the time that Jack invaded Zou? Yeah, except the vast majority of it was off-screen. We never see Jack and Carrot interacting. But what about Yamato? Yeah, funny thing, Yamato and Carrot never met during Wano. But where the hell is Night? So we have a theme with big antagonists in the New World, of having 3 commanders plus 1 who is away. We had 1 commander killed, Corazon, and 1 demoted, Snack. So what are we missing? 1 who just left, out of their own free will. And if Night left Kaido, it was not out of good in her heart. She left for her own selfish reasons. And now we're going to start the actually really crazy part of this theory. It's that time again in this channel, guys. It's time for some Greek mythology. In Greek mythology, Orion was a giant, a race described in Greek myth to be naturally extremely strong and aggressive. Orion used as his weapon a metal club and supposedly could slay any beast on earth, land, sea, or air. Does this remind you of anyone? Kaido, a gigantic man from the Oni race, known for its great strength and aggressiveness, uses a metal club as a weapon and is said to be stronger than any creature on Earth. But the most famous story about Orion is actually about Orion's death. Orion, during his hunt, boasted that he would slay every animal on Earth. Not liking this, Gaia, the goddess personifying the Earth, creates a giant scorpion and sends it to kill Orion. What follows varies from version to version. In some, Orion and the scorpion have a fierce battle, and though Orion dies, the scorpion also ultimately succumbs to its wounds of battle. In others, the scorpion kills Orion with a single sting. But in none of them, Orion wins. And in all of them, Orion dies. Honoring Orion's bravery, Zeus raises Orion and the scorpion as stars in the sky, creating the Orion and Scorpio constellations at opposite sides of the sky so that they will not fight each other. This is why Night's fruit could even be a mythical Zoan, a Kumo Kumo no Mi mythical model, Scorpio. So here's what I think are the important takeaways from this story. Orion and Scorpio are mortal enemies. Kaido and Night are not in good terms. Kaido likely despises Night more than anyone else. This is probably why no one in the Beast Pirates has even mentioned Night so far. Doing so likely would result in a Thunder Bagua to the face. Though Orion is supposedly stronger than every creature, he fails to defeat Scorpio. Night was reaching Kaido's level of strength. It's likely even that they had a fight that either ended in a draw or in Kaido's defeat. Night left Kaido because Kaido just wasn't strong enough. And finally, Scorpio kills Orion. What, so does Knight kill Kaido? We're no longer ZKK, we're KK. Carrot's mom kills Kaido, CMKK. No, I'm going to say that Kaido's death to Knight was more metaphorical. Knight killed Kaido's spirit. Kaido wanted to be Joy Boy, but how much did Kaido know about the prophecies? Perhaps, bringing back from a previous video, Kaido even knew that Joy Boy is supposed to be accompanied by Twilight, the mink who connects day and night, and thus marks the coming of the dawn. Perhaps, like Knight is a twisted version of Carrot, like Kaido is a twisted version of Luffy, and Kaido believed himself to be Joy Boy, Kaido also thought Knight was Twilight. Knight leaving Kaido was the final blow that killed Kaido's dream. He could never be Joy Boy because his Twilight left him. Worst of all, left him because he wasn't strong enough, the ultimate blow to his ego. This is why Kaido believes that Joy Boy is the one who defeats him, because if Kaido wasn't strong enough to be Joy Boy, then only someone stronger than him could be. And now Kaido is a sad man, unable to even kill himself, because death, Knight the Death, left him. And since death is what completes a person, without death, Kaido is now incomplete, an incomplete Joy Boy. But I didn't really answer the question, did I? Where the hell is Knight? So Knight is someone likely at Emperor level strength. If she left to create her own pirate crew, she would at bare minimum be a warlord, yet she is nowhere to be found. Could Knight still be working under someone, just someone else? But if Knight left Kaido because he was not powerful enough to serve under, who could she be working for? Is there anyone in the world who is even more powerful than the Emperors of the Seas? Yeah, you got it. I'm gonna claim Carrot's mother is now working for Imu. Not for the world government, not for the Gorosei, directly for Imu. So remember, Carrot is based on the East Asian myth of the moon rabbit, who was put on the moon after an act of self-sacrifice. But different cultures also have stories about rabbits being on the moon. In native North American mythology, there's a story of a rabbit who wants to go to the moon and is taken there by a crane. This is used to explain why cranes have long legs. We have this myth referenced in Whole Cake Island when Carrot fought Randolph, the white rabbit riding a crane. So from the Autonomy video, who does the crane, the bird that in East Asian mythology represent immortality, represent in One Piece? It's Imu. Carrot is the rabbit who's put on the moon after an act of self-sacrifice, while Knight is the rabbit that reaches the moon by riding the crane, Imu. For Carrot, reaching the moon is gaining the autonomy, her greatest power and her source of immortality, like the rabbit pounds the elixir of immortality on the moon. This means that Knight likely went to serve Imu to gain more power, or more likely to gain immortality. Now let's look at some of the characters who are parallels or allegories to Imu. Kureha, the incredibly old woman living alone in a castle atop a huge vertical mountain. Sugar, a woman who looks much younger than she is, wears a hood and a crown, the monocle representing the third eye, is introduced with Treble saying no one even knows of her existence and erases people from history. Pudding, the three-eyed woman who erases people's memories. And Tsuru, a powerful marine with a water-related ability named after the crane. Now notice how they are always closely followed by someone. Kureha was always followed by Chopper, Sugar by Treble, Pudding by Nitro, and Tsuru by Momo Uzagi, the pink rabbit, an admiral candidate that Tsuru sees as a young sister. Now, let's try to piece something together from this, shall we? A furry, transforming anthropomorphic animal, and a family member to Carrot, a bodyguard, someone who looks over your shoulder, a rabbit. And in that very chapter, when we see Imu for the first time, we see Kureha, and behind her what do we have? A Lapan, a monstrous white rabbit who fights with claws like Carrot and even looks at her Sulong form, who is acting as Kureha's bodyguard. And when the crew reaches the red line, when right before and above them lies the Holy Land Marijoa where Imu is, what do they encounter? A monstrous white rabbit. And see, Momo Uzagi even has a spider tattoo on her thigh, the spider lily of death, the spider devil fruit model scorpion. Now recently in Egghead, Vegapunk said that Mother Nature is the sea itself. Now who is the person we all think personifies the sea? Yeah, it's Imu, the one who almost surely has water powers, whose name backwards is Umi, meaning sea in Japanese. Yeah, you all know this already. So remember, Scorpio is created by Gaia to kill Orion. Gaia is essentially the Greek version of Mother Nature, this feminine figure that personifies the earth that is seen in many different religions. So if Night is Scorpio, then logically Night should be working for Imu. And this here is gonna be honestly a shot in the dark, but we might have actually seen Night already.
Imu-sama, 皆様がお揃いに。
Yeah, that's right, I'm gonna play this person we see in one single scene, a single panel as a silhouette in the manga, might be Carrot's mother. So let's think about the people who know about Imu's existence. The Gorosei, the people that everyone else believes rule the entire world. Sabo, who seemingly got nuked for this knowledge. Maybe Doflamingo, a guy who clearly knows way too much for his own good. And this random servant. Look, no one's even supposed to know that Imu exists. This can't be some random butler that Imu hired from Craigslist last Wednesday. Whoever this is an important character. Also, let's hear that line again.
Imu-sama, 皆様がお揃いに。
Damn, that was some good voice acting, wasn't it? Though I have admittedly failed to find out who the actress is, this doesn't sound like your average fodder voice actress. This sounds like someone exceptionally talented. Perhaps Oda told the anime team, hey, have a really good actress or this specific actress for this character. She's gonna be someone important down the line. But what does Imu need Night for? Well, Imu is the crown-wearing ruler of the world, and every monarch needs a royal knight. But how and why did Knight and Lindbergh have children together? Well, remember, Lindbergh is based on a Nazi and Knight is evil as hell. Lindbergh is strong and the most intelligent mink. Knight is without a question the strongest mink. They got together because of each other's genes to have the strongest children. There's likely zero affection between these two. Following the theme of the previous calamities, Knight would probably be someone obsessed with death. Considering the whole beast theme in the, well, Beast Pirates, I'm gonna say that this will likely be some extremely socially Darwinistic philosophy, a view that the strong live and the weak die, and that this is how it should be, that this is the natural order, that the death of the weak and the survival of the strong is what keeps humanity evolving. In this view, it is death that breeds strength. And now it all comes together. Because if you're an evil bastard, obsessed with death, wanting to have the strongest children, and working in the world government, you're exactly the one who would put her own children in CP9 to be trained since childhood to become elite assassins. Now we know how Carrot wound up in Cipher Pol. But if you're trying to have the strongest children, wouldn't you want to have a lot of them to increase your odds? Judd had a similar mentality and had 5 of them. The expression breed like rabbits exists for a reason, and remember, if you're counting rabbits in Japanese, you need 10 of them to count Toa, like Carrot's devil fruit. So it makes sense Carrot would have at least 9 siblings, so she would be the 10th child, just like she's the 10th recruit in the Straw Hats. Yet we don't see a bunch of rabbits in Cipher Pol, do we? What happened to Carrot's siblings? Remember, the strong live, the weak die. Just like Judge got rid of his failure, Sanji, Knight likely had the weaker children, not worth her time, die in various trials. It's likely even that she had all of them go Sulong and fight each other to see who survives, Village of the Blood Mist style. It's possible Carrot unknowingly killed her own siblings, which would be yet another parallel to Big Mom. Does that sound a bit too dark? Well, Scorpion mothers do occasionally eat their own children. And this could help explain why Lindbergh would rat out on the revolutionaries. One last thing about Charles Lindbergh is that there was a very famous case involving him where his child was kidnapped for ransom. To him, it's like Knight and the world government hold Carrot hostage and he's afraid of what Knight will do to Carrot otherwise. Ironically, unbeknownst to him, Carrot has been out of the world government's control for 2 years now and has recently been sailing with his boss's son. Thus, not only would he have been ratting out this information for nothing, but he was very likely to meet Carrot anyway whenever Luffy meets Dragon. It's been theorized, mainly by Yuderon, that Emo has a power to erase people's memories. Some of the parallels to Emo have such powers. such as sugar erasing individuals from others' memories, and pudding literally having a power to control people's memories. And it just makes sense that people's memories were erased at the end of the Void Century. Otherwise, how could you erase it from history without killing everybody? Remember the connections between Emu and Carrot. Both represent the Buddha. Both are the Rat Zodiac. They have the same role in the world, in a somewhat similar way to Joy Boy and Luffy. You can have Luffy meet Joy Boy since the latter is dead, but you can have Carrot meet Emu, and so why wouldn't you? Now I say that both Sanji and Big Mom contain parallels to Carrot, yet they don't really have anything in common among themselves, do they? Except one thing, they both had their memories erased. Sanji had his memories erased by Pudding, a three-eyed woman. Big Mom had her memories erased after drowning, erased by the power of water. And this is the final parallel to Carrot. Carrot had her memories erased by Emu, a three-eyed woman with the power of water. But how and why? The answer is Night. Picture this. Night wanted to make Carrot into a killer, yet Carrot refuses to kill anybody. She performs her missions in CP9 as long as they don't involve assassination, and instead Cipher Pol uses her as a killing machine in full moon nights without her consent or knowledge. At some point, Carrot finds out, likely the moon is unexpectedly covered, she turns back to normal and finds herself in the middle of killing people. Carrot then becomes completely uncooperative, possibly even tries to escape or rebel against Cipher Pol. The only option left is to give her a reset. Night takes Carrot to her boss, Emu, to get her memories erased. And if memories are what make us who we are, then perhaps Night thought that if Carrot's memories are erased and her made to believe that she's been a willing killer all along, maybe she'd finally become one. But how can Emu erase people's memories? Remember the monster rabbit near the red line who foreshadows Night? That rabbit spits out Kami and Papag. And then we get one of the best jokes in One Piece, in my opinion. Zoro erases his memories with sheer willpower. In One Piece, where willpower is quite literally strength, doesn't it just make perfect sense that you should be able to use it to erase your memories? It can even happen to people in real life, particularly as a response to traumatic events. And don't we have a type of haki that is precisely about imposing your will upon others? Someone with sufficiently advanced Conqueror's haki should theoretically be able to use it to forcefully erase people's memories. And who would have the strongest Conqueror's haki of them all, if not the one that has been ruling the entire world from the shadows for 800 years? This is what I meant by saying this isn't gonna be some contrived amnesia plot. This is gonna be the reveal of the power that Emu used to erase the Void Century from history. But why did Carrot end up in Zou? Because 2 years were left before Joy Boy was to make his second coming, and the government has still not retrieved the autonomy. Emu cannot wait any longer, the fruit must be retrieved and the dukes must die. And Carrot as a mink is an invaluable asset for her potential to infiltrate Zou. After getting her memories erased, Carrot gets sent to Zou, likely by CP0, with orders to rat out on the minks and possibly to assassinate Inuarashi and Nekomamushi, maybe even with scorpion venom provided by Night herself. Yet, even after all of this, even after being convinced that she's been a willing killer this whole time, she doesn't do it. She switches her alliance to the dukedom, like Tyrannosaurus quickly becomes loyal to Iceberg despite being a rat. This is why in her flashback it looks like she is training with the musketeers for the first time, because she is. She has just arrived in Zou. This is why Bariete was worried about Wanda thinking Carrot betrayed them. And just after this, Inuarashi talks about a traitor being among them. It's not because they think she's a traitor now, it's because she was a traitor in the past, and they know it. This is why it's an act of self-sacrifice that will make Carrot be chosen as the one to inherit the autonomy. It's not her skill that needs to be tested, it's her morality and allegiance. She was a traitor in the past, and her mother is a monster working for the enemy. It needs to be 100% sure that she will not become a traitor again, because the fruit ending up with the world government is the worst scenario imaginable. And this is the great irony of it all. Carrot gets sent over to Zou by the government to make sure Twilight does not appear and the dawn does not come, but turns out to become Twilight herself. Emu causes her own downfall. Now this part, I admit, is gonna be pretty heavy speculation, but it does offer a lot of answers to many plot points that seemingly went nowhere during Wano. So Kaido seemingly assigned certain regions of Wano to be controlled by his calamities. Kuri was put under Jack, and fittingly for the Horsemen of Famine is turned to an infertile place with people starving to death, and Udon is placed under Queen, and fittingly for the Horsemen of Plague, it holds the Udon prison where the guards keep the prisoners in check using the plagues developed by Queen. Now, if the Horseman of Death was assigned any region to rule, what region would that be? Well, obviously, it would be the one described as an eternal grave, Ringo. Interesting even that Carrot is a snow rabbit and Ringo is the snowy region of Wano. But if Jack, being the Horseman of Famine, brought famine to Kuri, and Queen, being the Horseman of Plague, brought plagues to Udon, did Night bring death to Ringo? So in the olden flashback, we see that Ringo, despite being perpetually snowy, was actually relatively prosperous and housed many inhabitants previous to Kaido's arrival. But next time we see it, after Oden and the Scabbers have been defeated, there is seemingly no one left alive. The whole place has seemingly been converted into a ghost country. Though the entirety of Wano, save for a few scumbag nobles, suffered under Kaido's and Orochi's oppression, the situation in Ringo is a bit more extreme. It's like the population of Ringo has been completely exterminated. Now the important thing about Ringo is that Ringo is the region that was ruled for centuries by the Shimotsuki. It's where Ryuma's grave is. It's where Ushimaru lived. Now, we don't ever see Ushimaru die. Last time we saw him, he was breaking out of the cave he was trapped in with Yamato. Though Oda has confirmed that Ushimaru is not Zoro's father, based on age, it would actually make a lot more sense that he was his grandfather. But why would some rabbit woman, Carrot's mom even, be so important to the Zoro Shimotsuki stuff? So the funny thing is, Zoro was named after El Zorro, meaning the fox in Spanish, the fictional masked swordsman vigilante. And Ushimaru's pet, the one who was out to become Ringo's guardian after its destruction, Onimaru, is also a fox. Now the important thing is that foxes and rabbits have a very particular dynamic. Rabbits are often the primary prey of foxes, and foxes are the primary predator of rabbits, leading to the two having a certain dynamic in certain works of fiction. If you remember the killer rabbits from medieval marginalia, a common theme was the inversion of predator-prey relationship. The prey rabbit turns violent and goes on to hunt its predator. You get it? It's the same kind of inversion. It's rabbits hunting foxes. Now, Yamato seemingly did not recognize the resemblance between Zoro and Ushimaru, probably because she was too young at the time and hardly remembers Ushimaru's face. But Night was an adult at the time, and if she was responsible for Ushimaru's death, she would very likely recognize the resemblance if she's ever to come face to face with Zoro. Now, remember another thing that seemingly went nowhere in Wano? Yeah, Zoro's visit to Ryuma's grave. So again, Ryuma's grave, him being a Shimotsuki, is in Ringo. Perhaps the reason why we were not yet shown Zoro visiting Ryuma's grave is that he already told Zoro about what happened to Ringo during this visit, and this reveals the reveal of Zoro's true heritage, the reveal of what happened to Ringo, the reveal of what happened to Ushimaru, hell, the reveal of what the hell was the point of Nidai Kitetsu, who knows. These things were potentially not yet revealed to us because they are being saved for when Zoro confronts Night. And yet again, we can think of another thing that seemingly went nowhere in Wano. Zoro confronting the Grim Reaper. Was this perhaps an omen that Zoro would soon come face to face with a character who embodies the Grim Reaper? And what is the first thing that Carrot does in the manga? Oh yeah, it's attacking Zoro. But how and when would Zoro and Night come face to face? Well, they actually could very likely come face to face in this very arc of Egghead. So we all know about the parallels between Wano and Thriller Bark. And I think we can all also see the parallels between Egghead and Sabaody. You know, the presence of Kuma, Kizaru, Sentomaru, Vegapunk, the Pacifista, you get it. Now there's a very important thing that happens in Sabaody. This is the arc where, after coming from a string of incredible victories, the Straw Hats suffered their most brutal defeat ever at the hands of Kuma. It's a tragic arc that puts into perspective just how powerful the world government actually is. So could something in any way similar happen in Egghead? I mean, personally, I think right now we really need a display of how powerful the world government actually is, no? We know the government wants to kill Luffy even more now that Luffy awakened the Gomu Gomu no Mi. But who could the government send to kill Luffy who would prove to be an overwhelming enemy to oppose Kaido's Straw Hat crew? Only Night. And Night has a personal reason to go, retrieving Carrot. If Carrot is to show up in Haghead and meet Lucci, Cipher Pol will obviously inform the world government that she has been traveling with the Straw Hats, and that information will inevitably reach Night. And remember, Scorpio is the one that Mother Nature sends over when she wants someone dead. In this case, in a little twist, not Orion himself, Kaido, but the one who defeated him. Now let's look at some of the similarities between Kuma and Night. Someone with pulse, someone with no humanity, someone with ties to the Revolutionary Army, someone sent over to kill Luffy by the world government. And now remember the two meanings of Night's name. Night from day and night in Japanese is Yoru. That corresponds to 46 in Japanese wordplay. Night with a K is Kishi. That corresponds to 94. Chapter 46 is called An Uninvited Guest. And in the cover we see the serpentine rabbit from the Island of Strange Animals. Keep this little guy in mind. Chapter 94 is called The Second. In it, Nezumi puts a bounty on Luffy's head after he defeats Arlong. Remember who Nezumi parallels? Imu, the uninvited guest, the other enemy, is the knight sent after Luffy's head by Imu. Now, is this starting to sound a little bit concerning? Well, don't worry, it gets much worse. Now back to the characters that foreshadow Night as the one who follows Imu. You might have noticed another weird similarities between two of them. Both Treble and Nitro are made of a slimy substance. Now who else foreshadows Night? The monstrous rabbit fish near the red line. Now I say to keep the serpentine rabbit in mind, didn't I? In the Island of Strange Animals, in the cover we see Luffy pounding the mochi with the moon rabbits. That is a reference to Carrot. But right after we meet another rabbit, which is the rabbit serpent that Luffy grabs. Now I'm gonna say that though the moon rabbits are a foreshadowing for Carrot, this rabbit isn't. This guy here is foreshadowing for Night. Now let's look at these characters and let's see if you can piece something together. A fish, a serpent, and slime. What can we get out of this? The hagfish, a serpentine eel-like fish that is known for the slime it produces. Now remember, Carrot is based on the magical girl or Mahou Shoujo genre. Now if you watch one particular magical girl show, which I'll not name here, you should know that Mahou, meaning magic, derives from Ma, which denotes demons, witches or evil spirits, and Ho, meaning method. And Shoujo, meaning girl, derives from Sho, meaning little, and Jo, meaning woman. Therefore, the grown-up version of a Mahou Shoujo would be a Majo, a witch or a hag. And remember who else parallels Night as also putting her own children in Cipher Pol? Mother Caramel, also called the Mountain Hag. Hagfishes in Japanese are called Mekura Unagi, meaning blind eel. Now this is interesting, firstly because with Night being a twisted version of Carrot and Carrot being the lookout and noted for her great eyesight, that Night would some way be connected to an animal that is called blind. And secondly because rabbits in Japanese are called Uzagi. Do you get the pun? Unagi, Uzagi. A hagfish devil fruit would likely be a model of the Uo-Uonomi, the fish fruit. Now coincidence or not, the only model of the Uo-Uonomi that we've seen so far belongs to Kaido, who as we established is strongly connected to Night, with Kaido's model of the fruit also having a serpentine form. And a hagfish would certainly fit among the theme of the calamities of having prehistoric zoans, because hagfishes have remained basically unchanged for 300 million years. It's kinda interesting that the being that Kaido couldn't defeat despite him supposedly being the strongest creature and who ruined his dreams would turn out to also have a serpentine fish fruit, and especially one of an animal that you really wouldn't expect to be stronger than a dragon, much like you wouldn't expect a rabbit to be stronger than an Oni. And now you're probably like, okay, what the hell are you talking about? Didn't Night have a scorpion devil fruit? Now she has a hagfish devil fruit? What, is she Blackbeard now? Well, let's take a little look into Blackbeard and wonder why Blackbeard is able to have more than one devil fruit. When Blackbeard eats his second devil fruit, and Marco says that Blackbeard's body is different from others. Right besides him, we have this octopus guy. Chapter 83, the number for Yami, the number associated with Blackbeard, is called Luffy in Black, which is a perfect description for Blackbeard, isn't it? But notice this, it's called Luffy in Black because Luffy gets covered in octopus ink. And in this author's note, Oda makes some weird comment about how eating squid or octopus ink turns your poop black, and for some reason he put as the image for that author's note a hippopotamus. A hippo is the animal that Blackbeard is said to resemble. For some reason or another, Oda seems to be comparing Blackbeard's darkness powers to the black ink of an octopus. The important thing about octopuses here is that they have 3 hearts. In Blackbeard's Jolly Roger, you see 3 skulls and 8 bones, like the 3 hearts and 8 arms of an octopus. Now, are the theories about Blackbeard being an octopus correct? Did he eat an octopus fruit, or is he actually part octopus fishman? I don't know. And I don't know if there's some requirement other than having multiple hearts for having multiple devil fruits. I just know that it sure seems like having multiple hearts is at least a crucial component in it. But what does this have to do with knights? Well, it's because you see, hagfishes have 4 hearts.